Here's a walk around the old 1944 Willys MB before we do the tear down refurbish to go to Haspin Acres. The body overall is in pretty good shape. I mean, not a lot of mud over here. Down here, someone's clearly patched over the tool indents, and then this has got a little spot on there. But it actually came with the original data plates. It was delivered on November 16th, 1944. Serial number 488860. This one is particularly special because it has this data plate right here that shows the 7.5 by 16-inch tires. So this plate sat over on the dash over by the glove box, and these Jeeps, they're called a cross-country kit. They had the bigger tires on them, which this one doesn't currently have. They had an onboard air compressor hose, and they also had a special tire carrier on the back. It had to be spaced out of the body about half inch or so inch to fit that tire. I'm guessing over the pintle hook. So it's quite obvious that someone's just put decals on it all the way around. They brushed the paint on, and they did an alright job, but it's kind of showing its age underneath. Over here, it's really nice, solid all the way down. Side step looks alright. We got a little spot here, but nothing too bad. I was actually surprised at the floor in this thing. It's got some patches in it, but overall it's solid. It's not like we're going to be falling through it anytime soon. The rear has been patched as well, and a little bit of a spot right there. So it looks like someone did take some care when they did their little refurb before me. You know, they got all the stencil markings on the gas tank seats. Seat frames actually look brand new. If not, then they're new old stock because they're absolutely perfect. So under the hood of this thing, it looks like it used to have an F-head or a small block Chevy. It's got this square cut out of the hood, probably to fit a carburetor or some sort. And then you can also see that back here they cut the firewall for access to something. So it's got a standard Willys 4-cylinder. Unfortunately, this is out of a CJ2A. That's why we're not worried about originality per se, because the engine's not original anyways to the Jeep. So far what we did is I put a new fuel pump on it. Someone else before me put spark plug wires on, a cap and rotor. And then I had to put in a new condenser. I mean, it'll idle, but... Oh my god. What's it even burning? So earlier what I did is hooked up a fuel line out of here to a jerry can, and then from the spot on the fuel pump up here. And one of the lines wasn't tight, so you see there's no exhaust on this thing. So we fired it up, ran pretty good, but ended up shooting flames out of the bottom of the manifold, and it caught some of the dripping gas and lit that on fire. So you know, the clutch pedal obviously isn't there, but my plan was to hook it up and see if the clutch was stuck on the engine or not. So I reached my hand down in there, I pulled this plate off and stuck my hand in there to feel around for anything, and there was no throwout bearing. So I thought, oh, that's kind of weird. So I get back here in a box of parts, and it was sitting in there. So 1944 MB, wrecked to rescue in 1 week. So basically I got this weekend, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And the best part about all this is that I can't rebuild the brakes because I don't have all the parts here to do the brakes. I got all the clutch stuff except for a clutch spring on the throwout bearing, so we can't do the clutch kit yet. But we can sand down the body and everything, so we can't really do much mechanically right now, but we can at least make it look pretty while we're waiting for parts. Since I'm not a total monster, I'm going to do the paint job. I'm going to show you how to do the wrong thing the right way. I would call it a field repair style paint job. So we got the $20 Harbor Freight angle grinder tool kit, and I've got some stuff to go on that. So that'll get the wire wheeling done. Here's some 220 grit sandpaper for the sander. So we'll go over all this with 220. And then to finish it off, probably at 600, because you don't want to paint over a 220 sanded surface. It'll look kind of porous. Then, for a primer, get this at Walmart for $20. Exterior flat white paint. It's just paint and primer in one. I couldn't find just primer. So I'm going to go over that with the high-end roller brushes. Apparently this is a smooth finish one. I spent the extra $2 to get the good stuff. So after that's all primed, then we'll probably sand over the primer just real quick, and then we'll go over this with the military paint. It's kind of like gorgeous. We got the entire tub sanded on the outside and completely wire wheeled on the inside. My original plan was to just kind of go over this and get the flaky stuff out of here, but I ended up all this was flaky. So I ended up doing the whole bottom, the sides, top toolboxes and everything. All this smoothed over, get all the flaky old paint off. Then to make it nice and smooth to paint on, I went over it with 600 real quick. So pretty much a lot of the green paint was pretty flaky, it wasn't on there very well. So sander just knocked all that off. You see there's some rust from the tool slots, which is probably why these are filled in with Bondo. And it's getting really dark on me here, so today is Saturday. Tub is ready for primer. Ooh, is this a money shot? Oh god, it's gonna look like butt. Look at that form. I'll do that first. Dash. It's now Sunday. We're just 5 days away from Friday. It actually came out pretty nice. I mean, for the less than traditional methods of paint, I am very satisfied. You know, it's professionally sanded down, of course, and wire wheeled and everything. So it was prepped as good as it could be, essentially. You know, minus sandblasting, but all the surfaces were smoothed out completely. You know, used alcohol to clean off the surfaces before we painted. So now all the texture that we're getting is just because of the fact that I'm using a paint roller. But I've always been kind of curious about them, so what the heck. For the guy who used a mirror to patch the hood on this thing. So, I'm not that hillbilly. So let's see what we got going here. Oh yeah. And truthfully, you know, if you can't afford a proper paint booth or sprayer, if you do all the prep work, you know, right, spend your time, get it smooth, the Jeep can turn out pretty decent. But if you do have the room and the means of a paint booth, I would absolutely do it. I mean, by the time you buy paint rollers and, that kind of stuff and sanding equipment, and you might as well just do it the right way. But the nice thing about this is that, I mean, I'm doing all this in a single car garage. Not worried about overspray. You can just kind of sit here and get her done. See, what I'm really trying to do is to get in touch with our World War II ancestors. Pretend like we're out in the field in Normandy, repainting the Jeeps. All they did was scrape off all the flaky rust, and then they just paint them like this. I've actually got pictures of deuce and a halves being painted with brooms. So to say this method is unorthodox would be correct, but it is historically accurate. It is not accurate to use a paint booth. So one could say that this refurbish should win first place at the MVPA show. Here we go. This paint was bought from Ron Fitzpatrick at G503 Jeep Parts. Let's see. Here we go. Olive drab. Oh, this is wonderful. This actually looks really nice. Really nice. I would never do another paint project with a roller again. This is in the garage. At the shop with the paint booth and everything, just doesn't even make sense. It takes forever, you have to take my brushes, stuff gets expensive, but if you're just a reenactor or a guy in your garage, this really isn't that bad. I mean, it's kind of good. Well, that was way too easy. No throat bearing. What a shame. That was way too easy. Getting ready to do the rear brakes on the MB. Nice thing about the MB is that they have the full floating rear end. So rather than having a hub puller and this and that, you just unbolt this and the entire axle shaft will actually slide out. Like that. And then just like the front axle, there's some spindle nuts that we take off. And once that's done, the entire hub can bolt right off. It's not a tapered fit with the key like the CJ2A rear axle. Alright, we got the spindle nuts, the washers out, wheel bearing out. Be a good idea to repack that. So now this wheel is just kind of being barely held on. Here we go. And there are the brakes. Got a wheel cylinder up there, brake pads right there. Got all new replacement parts. We got our first set of brakes rebuilt. We just got new wheel cylinder, 2 new brake shoes. We reused all this hardware. The spring was in really, really nice condition. So to remove this, all you have to do is pop out 2 bolts that are right on each end. This thing pops out, and these are only held in by 2 bolts down here, so a very, very simple job to do. So now we will take some wheel bearing grease. We're going to repack the wheel bearings and then put it all together, and then I'll show you how to adjust it. Alright, so before you can even get a wheel on, sometimes you might have to adjust these brake pads, which is what we're going to do. So on the back of the brake drum, you can see there's a nut with a goofy little bolt sticking through it. So what you want to do is take your wrench, put it on there. You can see how it adjusts. So that's pushing it outwards. But to get the wheel on, you're gonna want it all the way in, as far as it'll go. And same with the other side, just double check, see which way she's going. So that way's way out. So we're gonna want her way in. Alright, so there's that. So here is a great clutch debacle. When I took the train out the engine, it seemed to pull off really smooth. I mean, just popped right off. And this is what we found. Clutch is beyond worn out. And you see it's actually shattered right here. And you know, it's a normal CJ2A MB style clutch. So that's what I ordered. So I bought this clutch. And then, I don't know, I was just playing with it. And I go to slide it on the shaft and it's not sliding on. So then I look at it. Typical 10 spline clutch. Then I find out that someone modified the input shaft of the tranny to be a 20 spline. And none of the parts suppliers have ever heard of it. No one in the community has seen that before. So it's either A, you rebuild the tranny, or B, find a clutch that would fit the tranny. So I know this is 8.5 inch clutch with the 7/8 center hole diameter. So I went on eBay. Now a standard clutch kit for an MB is about $100 for everything. And for $32 shipped, I found a Ford Escort and Mercury clutch that theoretically everything should fit the same. So my hopes for this are not very high, but it's worth a shot. Nope. Does not fit. It's not big enough. So we got the transmission pulled apart. Now we can see exactly why the clutch system was never going to work. Here's the input shaft that was in it, and here's the correct one. You can see this thing's almost, 2 inches longer than this one. And the splines on this don't even start till the end of the splines on this. So even if I did find a clutch that did work with this, it wouldn't have even physically reached the clutch, which explains why the transmission was bolted up to the engine with the old clutch in it, because it wasn't even touching it. So we're going to put this one in. We've got new synchros for the tranny, snap rings and everything. We also have a new bearing for the back of the tranny, this new bearing for the front of the tranny. So we'll get her back together and paint it up. Gorgeous. Alrighty, a moment of truth. Got her back together. Now we're gonna try to fire it up. Pray to God there's no fires. Again. Woo! Gonna try to run the fuel up. And she's running. Barely. Come on, baby. Yes. Yes, it's alive. No oil leak. Not bad at all. Now we're gonna drive down the block where the local church is. Do some laps around the parking lot. Take our pictures for Craigslist. Call her a day. Steers beautifully. Look at that. Oh, we knocked the headlight out of it. Look at her. That's beautiful. I tell you what, for being roll-on paint, this sure did turn out really nice. Yeah, got our exhaust mounted. She's not too bad. I think it sucks is that gas tank situation, but oh well. Not too bad at all. The real question is, will it fire back up? Oh yeah, purrs like a kitten. Alright, let's test out the old brakes here.